Good morning. Welcome back to the Red Mic. Let's try this again, shall we? These Red Mic messages are leadership and life lessons I've picked up from 25 years as a public servant, 16 years as a youth football coach and scouting volunteer, and 10 years as a mediocre athlete with far more heart than actual physical ability. Today's Red Mic message: boredom is a gift. Happy Monday, first of all. Hope you had a good weekend. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you were really, truly bored? I'm not talking about, trapped in a Zoom meeting bored. Uh, I'm not talking about, I can't think of anything better to do bored. I'm talking nothing in your hand, nothing to scroll, waiting in traffic or waiting in line without, you know, figuring out what's going on somewhere else. We used to live a lot in those quiet, in between spaces of time. And now we do everything we can to fill the silence. When I was a teenager, we would, every once in a while, someone would just say, "Hey, Lincoln." I never understood it, but someone explained it to me. Well, that's someone trying to fill those awkward pauses. If you go 5, 10 seconds without somebody saying something, somebody might just jump in and say Abe Lincoln as a way to end the quiet. Um, it's something you're not expecting, um, and sometimes it would lead to conversations, but more often than not, somebody would just start talking about something else. Boredom is not a bad thing. One of the best speeches I ever wrote, and I've mentioned this speech before, the best hook line in the best speech I ever wrote came about when I wasn't even thinking about it. I was ironing a shirt. I wasn't working. I was getting ready for work. I was just, trying to make sure the seams were lining up right and the collar was solid and, you know, just doing my thing, not thinking about the big project in the back of my head. And then all of a sudden it came to me. The last legislature threw a party and left this one with the hangover. Sometimes I'm convinced that sometimes our best thinking can happen when we're not trying to think at all. It's like in that episode of Big Bang where Sheldon is trying to not think. He's just trying to do mindless stuff and he ends up being a unpaid busboy at the Cheesecake Factory, and then there's a crash and he sees a pattern in the crap that he just knocked over. And then he goes to leave, and Penny's like, "Aren't you going to clean this up?" He says, "I don't work here." um, Psychologists call that microflow. Um, the small mental gears in your head that keep going, even though you're doing simple, repetitive, mind-numbingly boring things. And they say that's where insight can be born. But we've replaced daydreaming with doom scrolling. um, Brain stimulation with distraction. And if you've ever been in a leadership role, distraction can be dangerous. You you miss what's going on. You've got to be aware. You miss who's hurting. You miss the problem behind the problem behind the problem. So here's your challenge. Next time you're waiting, don't touch your phone. Not at the stoplight, not in line at the grocery store. Just let your mind wander. Be still. And it might feel weird at first because you haven't done it in a long time. Maybe even an itch that you can't scratch. Well, I need to grab my phone. Well, no, you really don't. But a memory, an idea, a half baked idea, maybe, Or maybe you'll just be calm. Maybe you'll get to unplug a little bit and it'll help do a master reset in your brain. Reset, refoot, recharge. Parents, don't panic when your kid says that they're bored. That's not their failure. That's not your failure. That's an opportunity. You know, when I was a kid, I built a spaceship out of a old discarded welding box, and the actually it wasn't welding. It was a torch set. Had this big box, and then you had this styrofoam inset where all the different torches and gauges and stuff went. I turned it into a spaceship. I'd spend hours playing with that thing. And it came from me being bored on a rainy day. So let your kids be bored. Let them figure it out. Um, Now, don't go 100%, you know, boomer parent with Gen X neglect on your kids. But remember, hose water is not toxic. Staying outside until the street lights come on is it's good for them. But back to my point. Boredom can be where imagination starts. Daydreaming is not wasted time. It can be where your brain plants seeds that don't sprout until later. And they're going to grow into stories or solutions or clarity that you don't have time for, or at least that you say you don't have time for. So be bored. That's today's Red Mike message. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you find it helpful. I hope you're able to put some of this stuff into place in your life. Funny thing about that box with all the styrofoam and whatnot, I had not even meant on talking about that today. In fact, it just popped into my head. Ironic given the topic, I think. Maybe not. Been thinking about my dad a lot. Lost him a couple of years ago. Miss him. Yesterday being Father's Day, it was one of those days where I just sort of stopped thinking about it and just sort of put it out of my mind. So anyway, if you still have your dads around, let them know. Even if you missed out on yesterday, let them know. Anyway, um, I love you guys. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you very much. I'll see you again tomorrow. Don't forget, life is short. Drink the bourbon.